Has anyone noticed that as soon as you start naming something, it sounds even worse than it was, or it even feels worse than it felt before? Like, it's crazy. Like, as soon as you name something, it feels like very bad. Like, just imagine when you cry and your mom or your dad ask you, or your partner ask you, why are you crying? Oh, the sun is so strong. I really have to put on the glasses. So when you're crying and your parents ask you like, why are you crying? And then you cry more. Like, as soon as someone asks you, are you sad? Then you just become sad and more sad. It's crazy. I think it's more of like the art of naming. Is it the art of naming? As soon as you name something, it gets worse. Like, it feels worse, it sounds worse, it's very hard. Like, for example, something like depression. I had a friend I had a friend that I met around 2017 or 2018, and we were very good friends. We met in an orphanage in Tanzania, and this friend of mine had depression. He's from United States, and he had depression, and he was taking medicine, and I was like, oh, there's nothing like depression. You cannot be depressed. How can you be depressed that you have to take medicine? What is depression? You're just acting up. There's nothing like that. But now I realize, like, probably I had that thing, but I just was not naming it. It didn't have a name in my vocabulary. I didn't have it like depression. Probably I had it like a bad day, or I had it like several bad days. Recently, I have also been undergoing certain feelings that have not been very good to me, and I started also naming them depression. And every time I felt bad about something, or I had a conversation and it didn't go well, maybe with someone, right, I just go back into thinking like, oh my god, I am now depressed. From the conversation, I'm now depressed. So I just noticed that as soon as I start naming things, they just get worse and worse. They feel worse, they get worse, and I don't know if it's the right thing or it's the wrong thing to name something. I understand like it's easier to deal with something when you know what it is, right? So it's easier to deal with depression if you know you have depression, if you know the symptoms of depression. But if you ignore the depression, it's not easy to deal with it, because you ignore it and you don't know what it is. You ignore the symptoms, you do not mention it, you do not talk about it, and at the end it makes you suffer. But as soon as you know what is your problem, then you can really deal with it, right? I understand that this is the most important thing of naming, but I think naming also makes us really very like sensitive, because I think as soon as you find some symptoms, like you have some symptoms, maybe as soon as you have a bad day or you quarrel with someone and then you feel so down, you start thinking like, oh, now I'm depressed, I feel bad, I feel like I want to kill myself or something. Like, you really exaggerate things. This is something that I have found that it's not there in my culture. Like in Tanzania, there is nothing like naming, especially for example, the way I am raised, it's like you cannot talk so much about your emotions and the way you feel. As a result, you do not have even that time or that moment that you think like, I am depressed or I feel bad, because you do not have this moment of expressing how you feel, of expressing you're depressed and saying your symptoms, that people can help you. So you find that there are so many people who are broken and are destroyed, and they come to realize this very late, because we do not name, we cannot show off our emotions. Like, especially I think if you are a man, usually there is this thing that a man should be strong, a man can't say their emotions. So there are so many broken people out there, and yeah, they don't really know that they're suffering from something. And in the end, you find that people kill themselves, or people do weird stuff like killing other people, and things that maybe if they were recognized earlier, they would have been fixed. Like, maybe there would have been solution to really help these people, like things like like therapy or group section therapies, where just people go and get help, is something that is not there in so many places. In so many countries, there is nothing like this group therapy, and even if it's there, it's probably very, very expensive for someone to just go and see a doctor and explain to them how they feel and how they are and what they really want to fix in their life or what they're going through in life. So you find a bunch of people who are going through different emotions, different things, and they cannot really go through them because they have no that luxury of naming things. Like there is no that luxury of saying we are suffering, I am suffering from a certain thing. Because for me, some years back, I didn't know this term depression. I always thought like this friend of mine was just lying. 2 weeks ago, I was just texting with him. I told him, wow, now I understand the meaning of depression. I understand that someone can be depressed because I am going through it and I know it now because you told me the characteristics of it. So I named it and now I know that at some point I go through these things. And yeah, it's okay to show out your emotions and go through therapy and do all things that are good for yourself. But somehow I also think like it's also fine to not name things because some things don't really need your attention. Like if it's just a small quarrel that made you feel bad, it's okay that you feel bad at that moment. It doesn't mean that you are depressed, you have this really depression. It's just that you are just reacting to this specific moment. You are a human and it's just fine for you to just react in specific moments. You do not have to be sick to have feelings and emotions. So sometimes I just also, in the other end, I think like it's also good for some things to remain unnamed and just be dealt in a normal way so that we do not really panic with life and think like we have this bunch of sickness, ADHD or something that is supposed to be fixed and we have to fix everything. Sometimes we have to just go with the flow and just change some things or learn some things, like learning to communicate. And it doesn't mean like you have ADHD. If you are depressed, you have a conversation with someone and you do not agree on something and then the whole day you feel bad. No, you can just opt to communicate well with this person and find a way that you don't feel depressed, and you don't just finding a way that you don't really mention that this is depression, because not everything should be mentioned. I think like it's good to mention and know something and deal with it as early as possible, but we shouldn't rely in mentioning to fix something. We shouldn't rely to have a bunch of symptoms that all mean one thing, like maybe the symptoms of depression are this, and this, and we shouldn't wait for all those symptoms to come together so that we name this thing depression. We should deal with symptoms individually. You feel tired, rest. You feel like you cannot concentrate, do one thing at a time. You feel like you are angry, stay away from what made you angry, give yourself space. You feel like you're overwhelmed, relax, just live life, don't complicate. You feel like everything is around you, find your space, your personal space, and do what you like, do what is simple and what you would pick first, like not being overwhelmed. So we can also learn, I think we can also learn to deal with things individually, like one thing at a time, and not really always putting all the symptoms in one category. And as soon as we start naming this, we think like we are destroyed, we are bad. I see a lot of people who are out there on the internet and they're saying I have depression, I have ADHD, I have this, and they sound like they are destroyed. They sound like their life is like complicated. To me it sounds like, oh my god, you have all this, like how can you survive? Like how can someone have all this? So it's more like we have to learn to sometimes not name things. Some things are just fine, just unnamed. You can just find ways to deal with every symptom individually so that something doesn't sound very like huge, like it's crazy. One thing that I can also relate with the naming is, for example, the race naming. For example, this is black, this is white, this is Asian, this is no, we are all human. Like, yes, the skin color differs, but we're all human. Yes, we are all human. And something like racism, when you name racism, it then sounds like it's something that has to be like it's something very unbelievable bad. It's not so bad. I think it's not very bad. What is bad is the actions that someone should be told, like, these are the bad actions. This is something you shouldn't do to someone. It doesn't matter which race, right? So when it's now I'm talking about racism, but what I wanted to say is like when you name someone as racist, it doesn't make sense because it can be just something that they culturally don't do. For example, I could not kiss someone on their cheeks twice because in Tanzania we do not do that. So as soon as I approach someone who is maybe from here, maybe from South America or something, who is from Spanish speaking country or something, they always kiss as a way to communicate, right? So the only thing that I could do is to shake hands when I meet someone. So I'm not like, I'm not, you cannot name me racist. You can just say like, she just doesn't like the kissing. So when you name things, they just sound like very, very bad. And it also encourages bad behaviors, especially when you name something. The naming comes with a lot of things. Like, I don't really think like we should name things. We should just always deal with something alone. Like, if it's racism, we should call it racism, yes, but what made it racist? Not everyone should be racist. We should just see, we should also reason. When you are depressed, you should also, when you say I am depressed, you should also reason, am I really depressed, or am I just angry, and this anger took me into that point of feeling like this, like depressed and down. So you have to think like, how can I fix something individually and not terming something? When you term something into something big, it's not easy to really fix something. I believe if you want to fix something, you shouldn't fix it in a matter of, hey, stop being depressed, or hey, stop being racist. Just fixing the thing that appear to not be nice. If someone's called you a nigger or something, then you could say, hey, please don't call me a nigger, I don't like it, or I feel not good about it. And not saying, you're racist, you call me nigger. For me, I didn't know. Like, I'm from Tanzania, and nigger is like, I didn't know it's something offensive. I didn't know for sure. So we could be coming from different cultures, and we shouldn't always try to fix things as whole by giving them a name. We should fix something as one thing. Yes, this one name could help us really identify things, but in the fixing process, I think fixing one thing at a time should be our goal in everything. Yeah. I will end the video now. I have to go out. It's weekend, and yeah, I have to enjoy my weekend. So I just wanted to record this, I don't know, 15 minutes, 20 video, or 15 minutes to 20 video, and then I will go and enjoy my weekend. So I hope you enjoy your weekend too. Have a blessed Saturday, and ciao.